Hello, Trina. I'm so excited to talk to you today. How
I'm
are you?
excited. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to see you. You look beautiful. Look
Oh,
like sunshine.
thank you, thank you, thank you. To kick things off, as I shared, for Women's History Month, Ascentum is highlighting amazing business owners who represent Ascentum's values. And you, for me, are the embodiment of authenticity. And I'll share more about why I think that later. But I want to give you an opportunity to just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do so
Okay.
that others can get to know Miss Trina Hill.
All right, thank you. So Trina L. Hill, I always say I am entering what I call corporatepreneur. So I am a senior vice president for a large fintech, but also have a coaching consulting business this year with the focus on women of color, and it's called Tech Care. So I am the CEO and founder of Tech Care, and I provide coaching, community, and compassion for women of color in technology, because I understand what it's like to navigate these waters in this space. I also have the pleasure of being the wife of Vernon for over 20 years and the mother of my son, Jonathan, and the caregiver at times for my parents. And you know how it is, Lisa, dot, 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 right? So I speak, I also am an author. We wear many hats as women in our lives. So that's a little bit about me. And thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. I love so much of what you said about, first of all these hats that we wear as women, wife, mom, executive, entrepreneur, speaker, caretaker, so many things.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I wanted to talk to you and why I thought you would be great to represent authenticity is because at Ascentum, authenticity for us means not only just being true to yourself, like showing up as who you really are, but it is largely about being true to your values, to your beliefs in all the spaces that you enter into with all the hats that you wear, having that thread of consistency. And for
Yes.
me, that really is you. I have had the privilege of working with you in corporate and seeing you outside of corporate doing all of the things that you do to minister to and to support other women, especially women of color. And what I know about you is that Trina L. Hill is Trina L. Hill everywhere she goes. Your
Yes.
faith comes through in every experience. Your passion shows in whatever you're doing. And that is really an amazing thing, especially when being in a large corporation where people will try to mold you into something that they want you to be. So tell us, how do you do it? How do you manage to be authentically, genuinely you everywhere?
Yeah, Lisa, that's a great question. I think, to be honest, it's been an evolution, right? As we get older, as we become, as I say, more of ourselves, we feel more empowered to be who we are in the fullness thereof. But I've always been a woman of faith in every place I go. I believe that that's a part of my assignment, right? So in our corporate spaces, as you talk, I don't shy away from the fact that I'm a Christian. There are people that I have called or emailed in the middle of the day and said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but this is what God's told me to tell you. And I don't take that assignment lightly. Right. So and I'm also okay with the rejection of it. Right. So if I do that to you, and me and you may not even believe in the same God, but if that's a part of the assignment, then that's what I go do. And I believe that, my faith and my belief in God is no different. It's a part of my identity. It is my identity, to be honest. It's no different than my hair color or my eye color. And I don't shy away from that. I know that it is, quote unquote, never always, corporately correct to talk about religion or politics or things. But as we think about diversity, inclusion and belonging, religion is a part of that. Right.
Yeah.
And as a woman in technology, I've had the pleasure of leading people who have different faiths than mine. And I lean into them and I still love them and care for them, but I'm still firm in my belief. And I try to please God in everything that I do. That is, and again, that's my assignment. Everybody's assignment is different, but I believe that is my assignment, is to continue to be the light whether it's in the corporate halls, virtual halls now, or rooms, or it's on the baseball field with my son when somebody may be attacking him because he struck out, right? It is to still continue to stand firm in my faith.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I appreciate you doing that because I have been the recipient of a phone call or a text message that says, hey, I love you. I'm thinking about you. And this is what I'm hearing or I want to share about you. And so I want to thank you for being authentically you, for honoring the assignment that you have been given, because I can say just from my own personal experience that those messages, those little nudges have come from me at the exact right time, and they have always been spot on. So thank you for doing that and showing up in that way.
Thank you. Thank you for receiving it too, Lisa. Because, you know, sometimes it can be scary when God tells us to go do something that's not politically correct, and you don't always know what's going on with people, right? So I just thank you for receiving it, because you're always so gracious and loving.
You are very welcome. So Tech Care, tell me about that. This is a new venture for you in some ways. You've been doing it all along, but to formalize it and really found an organization, I think is amazing. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I've been in tech for over 20 years. And as a Black woman, look, I've gone through my own journey of dealing with microaggressions, micro assaults, all of the micros, right? In addition to, right, balancing, and you even talked about assimilating, right? Figuring out how do I navigate this white male dominated, or even quite frankly, Indian male dominated space, and to really go from surviving to thriving, right? And so as I have, you know, gone through my own journeys and as I coach other women, what I saw was this theme of we don't really have a psychologically safe space. Number one, where we can go and just be who we are without judgment. We also did not have a place where we could get solid coaching from a woman of color, right? Because a lot of times these executives that we are looking up to, they do a great job, but there's an element oftentimes that's missing. It's either the color or the fact that we are women. And the way the playbook is really written more so for them. And the way we operate in that framework, it has to be different, right? And a lot of times they don't adjust. So, you know, me seeing women and me working with these women, I saw a need. And this had been a vision actually 4 years ago, right before COVID. I started thinking about tech care. How do women in technology take care of themselves? Do we have the spaces? Do we have the support system? Are we getting compassion in our jobs? But the tipping point was one phone call I got from a client, and she was going through this struggle. And she called me, Lisa, and she was telling me that she was going to commit suicide. Okay. And so here I am on the phone with this woman, and she's talking about how overwhelmed she's feeling, how she's feeling like she's never doing anything right. You know, it's like a death by 1,000 cuts, or even for her, 1,000,000 cuts, and how she's not feeling worthy. And I said to her, your worth is not defined by what the world says. Your worth is defined by what God says about you, right? And sometimes we're out of place because that's not the assignment. And sometimes we're in a place of shifting the season, right? It's a shift that's happening. So sometimes God has to do this divine disruption that happens in us to get us to move into shift. But after talking to her, to be honest, I got off my butt and I said, okay, I'm going to launch this, because what I don't want is for another woman to even consider taking her life because of the way she's been treated in the workplace. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, that is really powerful. First of all, that once she reached out to call you, I mean, that is truly being authentic, to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to share where you are with another person. So that she did that's powerful in and of itself. That you were the person that she chose to share that with says a lot about you. And that's why you being authentically who you are really makes a difference, because that allowed her to know that she had a safe space with you.
Yes.
And then that being the impetus, the thing that finally pushed you to do what you knew you were already called to do. to create that space. And as coaches, that's a lot of what we do, is holding space for others to be, and even to discover who they are and who they're becoming. So thank you for doing that. Kudos to you. I know that you're helping so many people. So tell us, like, who's the ideal client for Tech Care? I know she's a woman of color. What else is the common thread around the people that you're helping now?
Yeah, in this season, I'll say I've leaned into really two separate groups. I think it's what I call the working group of women, or I would probably say around 25 to about 45 years old or 55 years old. That's kind of my target market, because I think once you get in and you're in the thing, then you really understand where you are and what you need, right? And then the second group, Lisa, that I've really been leaning into is, because as you know, we've had a lot of layoffs in the tech space, are these women who've been impacted by these layoffs. Some of these women have never been laid off before. Some of these women are taking care of multiple households, as oftentimes we have to do that as women of color. A lot of times when we're the ones that have made it, we're not just making it for ourselves or taking care of just our homes, we're also taking care of other households, right? And so over the last, I'd probably say 30 to 60 days, I've really tried to lean in and give them some support, because there is trauma there. There is sadness, there's grief, there's these layers of things, all in the midst of them worrying about how they're going to take care of their families. And so under normal circumstances, it would just be, the people that are working, and that's great. But as you know, I have a heart for those that are dealing with change and really loss. Because when you lose your job, for some people, it's their identity. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I believe that we are called, we have a purpose. The position is a part of the purpose, but it is not the purpose.
Right.
But for some people, that's not how they view it.
Yeah, that's really tough. And I think the other thing that happens is, if you've been working in a certain industry or company or role for so long, you do start to integrate that into who you are and how you see yourself, and what feels like you. And so when that's gone, you feel like you've lost, and you have lost something. But for many of us, it can feel like you've lost yourself. And so who we are and what our identity is, what makes us authentically and uniquely us, starts to get confused, because it's so interwoven into what we've done for so long. And what I find in some of the women that I coach and talk to is that many of us haven't even asked ourselves the question, who am I? What do I want? What matters to me?
That's right.
Those kinds of questions, because we're so busy taking care of others, whether it's doing our role as wife, mother, employee, friend, daughter, etc. We're carrying so much that who we are, what we want, what we value, kind of gets lost. Right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And another thing, Lisa, I think, you probably know this just as well as I do. A lot of times as women, we're told what to do. Right? If we're really good at what we're doing, whether it be in the marketplace or in our homes, people say, well, since you're good at that, we're going to just have you do it. But just because you're good at it doesn't mean that's your calling. Just because you're equipped for it doesn't mean that that's the calling. But we get so caught up into doing what people tell us to do, or leaning into some of those societal pressures about what we should do, versus saying, what is it that we really want to live a full, fulfilled, fun life. Yeah. Right. Because we only get one.
That's right. Yeah. And then I think too, there's the pressure, not only of people saying, well, hey, you're really good at this, so can you do more of it? But there's the sort of preconceived notion sometimes about what we should be and should do, because we're women, or because we're a person of color. So that happens too. So talk a little bit about what you've seen from your own experience, or either from your clients that are in those corporate spaces, in technology, and how the role, the company, the work kind of causes us to lose or shift, or even not even realize our identity and not show up authentically as who we are.
Yeah, I think, and I'll speak to earlier in my career, because I think this is a really good one. early in my career, the attitude, it was actually was me and my mentor at the time. She's a mentor for me. We were the only women in a room of like 20 some odd men every week driving an initiative. And those men, their expectations was that we were supposed to look like them, dress like them, talk like them, be like them, right? Be very, and when I say like them, very direct, low EQ. It's all about the data and the facts. We don't have feelings here. We don't care how you feel, just get the work done, right? And it's hard to be who you are because that's not how I am. Do I have the data? Do I have the facts? Have I done my homework? Yes, but I'm going to lean into the people first, and then we'll talk about the work. That's my nature. And so earlier in my career, it was a struggle to balance, but it was always this internal conflict. And for me, I was blessed enough to have a woman that was older than me to say to me, I don't think you're really being who you are. Like, I see this conflict that's happening, and you're so young, you don't know any better. But let me tell you that this conflict is happening. So you got to choose. You got to choose if you want to continue to be who you really are and what feels good and natural for you, or if you want to do what they want you to do and come to work in here and be miserable every day. Okay. And because I had someone to break it down for me, and to be honest, Lisa, present a choice. Because a lot of times the choice isn't presented. We think we don't have a choice. I chose to lean into who I was. And that became actually the best thing I could have done because I was such an outlier. I could go into rooms, I could have conversations, I could get us to do things that normal other people couldn't get us to do because I believed in the people and the relationships. And so I think we all have a time, whether it's that incident or somebody, doing something to you or giving you this project that you don't feel like you can achieve and they want you to do it a certain way. We all have these different stories, but we need to understand we get to choose how we proceed. And we also need to understand the cost that comes with that choice, right? Luckily for me, I had her, so I had covering to really lean into who I was. And she basically became a mentor / sponsor for me to talk about the value of me having this EQ. We weren't calling it EQ then, but the relationship building and the fact that I brought that to the table. But look, it could have derailed me. Right. And so I think you have to choose how you want to show up. But I personally believe if you want to be happy where you are and to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and not question who that other person is looking back at you, you have to choose to be who you are in the fullness of who you are. But let me also qualify that. I know this thing around authenticity is a thing. And everybody's like, I just want to be all of who I am where I am. And the reality is we must be refined in our authentic selves, because the same things that you do with your girlfriends is probably not the same things you do with your mom, right? You're still being Lisa, but the conversation and the way you engage is just going to be different. You need to be able to read the room, but not lose yourself in the room.
Oh, that's good. Read the room, but not lose yourself in the room.
That's right.
That's right. And I think that is the struggle for some people, right? It's not one extreme or another. It's like I have lose all of my identity or be completely myself everywhere. We do have to have that emotional intelligence, the maturity, the wisdom that comes with understanding the environment we're in and how to best show up as ourselves authentically in a way that feels good and right to who we are, but is appropriate for the environment.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's really good. So what advice, Trina, would you give someone who maybe, whether she's a woman of color in tech or in some other space, and she's struggling with those issues of this choice, maybe not even feeling like she has a choice? What advice would you give to her?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, what do you want? Right? You sitting down with yourself and saying, I think it's two questions. What do you want? Who you are, and then what do you want? Right? And I think once you understand who you are and you understand your assignment, because we all have one, right? Part of your assignment, Lisa, is a wonderful coach, and you've done that in your own business as well as corporate spaces before. But being clear on who you are and standing firm and solid in that, I think that's number one. Number two is, what do you want? what is it that you want? And then the third question you need to ask yourself is, what are you willing to pay for it? Because it's going to cost you something, right? There were times in my career that, yes, I wanted to go up this corporate ladder, but the positions that were presented to me at the time was not going to fit for my household. So I had a choice, but I was clear in who I was, what my values were, right?
Yeah.
And the choice was an easy choice because there was no back and forth. It was clear. In this season, I can't do that because I want to be available to our son, right? But if I had not known who I was, I would have taken that opportunity that was presented to me, right, for validation. And that may not have worked for my family. And the cost would have been time with our son.
Yeah. And that's a cost that would have been too high. You weren't willing to pay
Exactly.
that cost. That is so good, Trina, because that is largely those three questions. Who are you? What do you want? And what are you willing to pay in order to have what you want and be who you are? That is so critical. You know, I ask similar questions and it really relates to that. In my practice every day, I ask people sort of, you know, what do you value? Right? You know, so what are your values? What are your strengths? And what is your purpose? Right?
Yes.
Because that's where we discover our greatness. That's where our power comes from. That's truly being authentic to who you are. When you're operating from a place of strength, you know you're fulfilling your purpose. And then you're doing what you love, and those things that you value is coming through. That's when you can be most powerful. And quite frankly, that's where success really is. That's where the money and the accolades and all that comes when you're operating from that place of power. So I think those are great questions. I'm sure that there are people who will see this, Trina, or will read the blog post that say, oh my gosh, I need to talk to Trina Hill. How can people get in contact with you?
Yes, please go to my website, www.techcarewoc.com. So that's techcarewoc.com.
techcarewoc.com. So if you are a woman in tech and you want to have that coaching, the community, the compassion, and that care that comes so that you can be authentically yourself and succeed in the spaces that you are, Trina Hill is absolutely the coach for you. Tech Care is where you need to be. Trina, I am so honored that you took the time today to have this conversation with me. I'm just so thrilled, and I'm honored to call you my friend, my sister, and just, you know, fellow journeyman right on this path to purpose and passion. So thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for always being the light. Thank you for always asking the right questions. Thank you for always loving and caring for everyone that you engage with. You are far more than you probably even think you are. Especially in this season, because I see you in just constant flow. And it's just beautiful because you're right where you need to be.
Oh, thank you. I receive all of that.